if we had unexpected guests, I would see my mom rushing to her purse, getting some cash, giving me like secretly cash and saying, go get some stuff for our guests, to serve them, to make sure that they are happy and their needs are served.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another Matt Talks Hospitality. And this very special episode, I'm so thankful that Armen has joined this particular episode. Armen was born in Syria and he grew up in an Armenian Orthodox Christian family. Due to the war and the rise of ISIS and his sexual orientation, he was no longer safe in Syria. In January 2014, he fled to Lebanon in search of safety. However, Lebanon proved unsafe for him as an LGBT refugee, and that forced him to hide his identity. Through the UNHCR agency, the resettlement program in cooperation with the Dutch government, Armen was able to come to the Netherlands in 2015. Resettlement is designed for refugees who face danger, even in the first country that they flee to. Today, Armen has built a new life in Amsterdam. He graduated from the Hotelschool The Hague and has now found work there as a student recruiter, where he is committed to making education more diverse and inclusive. He also sings in the Amsterdam Men's Chorus, which I listened to recently, and I thought it was such an amazing thing. And he's actively advocating the rights of refugees and the LGBTQIA community for UNHCR. I invited Armen to share his remarkable story. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me. To be honest, I'm honored to be here and share, of course, my story with the listeners and with you as well.
So your life experience, like the things you've gone through, you've experienced hospitality in many forms within your family, your culture, which is a very hospitable culture, during conflict, displacement, now in education and advocacy. What does hospitality mean to you?
To me personally, hospitality means acknowledging one's needs and trying to cater to them. But in the same time, of course, catering to your own needs and wants. So, and be in balance. Because if you are not in balance, if you are not catered, how are you supposed to help and serve the other or show hospitality to others?
I like that. So you're just saying is I have to be balanced myself to be able to give hospitality to others, and that, like, finding that balance today has allowed you to now go into this profession.
Absolutely, yeah. And of course, again, acknowledging the needs. So sometimes the needs are there, but people word it in a different way. So then when you realize that, oh, they need actually this, they're saying something else, but they need this. So that's the talent that you have. That's the skill that you have to understand, okay, these people are talking about this. However, I know how to serve them. I know how to cater them. So that's actually the essence of it.
So I didn't grow up in Syria, but from what I've seen from a cultural aspect, it looks like hospitality is a deep-rooted cultural value. But what did hospitality look like in your upbringing?
This might sound very funny, a little bit funny story actually, when I share from my family. Or probably some of you can also relate to this. We grew up in a family in the sense of if we had unexpected guests, I would see my mom rushing to her purse, getting some cash, giving me like secretly cash and saying, go get some stuff for our guests, to serve them, to make sure that they are happy and their needs are served. So in other words, is that we used to do our utmost, to cater to our people. And that is really the root of, I would say, of what we do in hospitality. But also, that's what we did in Syria in the back.
Because we both studied the same hotel school. I studied Hotelschool The Hague a few more years ago, probably, than what you did. But there, obviously, hospitality is the heart of everything. Has your perception of hospitality changed in all these years since you left Syria, and that original organic hospitality that you experienced there from what you're seeing now?
Yeah, then I will go back a little bit back to Syria, and then I come with a quote that we use, especially that's an Arabic one, and if you don't mind me saying it, so it says "Al jar qabla dar." It means literally means the neighbor before the hosts, before the house itself. So it comes from the idea that indeed sometimes you have to serve your neighbors or you have to serve your guests, even if you know that you're going to end up being hungry in the evening. So that's indeed the extent that the hospitality in our country used to go. I used to work also in hospitality back in Syria, and I remember this guests coming in saying, "Oh, I went to a barber and like I asked for a haircut, but they give me a shoulder massage and a facial treatment and all that and they didn't want to charge." And people were surprised because they're not used to this. But this was indeed how we sometimes even on our personal costs used to give things away and used to do things for others. And these are indeed the lesson that I learned when I got here. Okay, I can do that, but at some point it will also cost me a lot. So again, coming back to my definition of hospitality, I had to learn here to be stable myself, to learn how to indeed see if I'm strong enough already, if my needs are catered, to be able to indeed help and support others as well. So that was a change for me. So like understanding that, okay, here my limits are. So and I still sometimes go out of my way to help people, and then I find out I put myself in difficult situations and I have to come back from that. So that was the balance that I learned here.
But I think if I listed all the things you do outside of the work, you already do so much more than most people do in the country that we live in. Where does that come from?
Yeah, honestly, it was always a fire in me when I was a kid. So I was always against the unjust, and I always want things to be in the right way. Yeah, sometimes maybe I also, as a kid, I also didn't get, let's say, the enough attention or the enough, yeah, my needs weren't covered, let's say in that way. So that's why I was like, felt so unfair and so injustice. And then there was always this kind of activist in me that they want to make sure that everyone is happy, that make sure that everyone's needs are catered. So it never left me, honestly. It went throughout my journey to the Netherlands, even here. I realized that it's kind of also contagious. So the more I speak to people, kind of people also get the point, and they also join my journey. So it helps. It really helps.
Would you be able to take us back to the moment you decided to leave Syria? That's probably the pivotal moment when you felt that it wasn't safe for you there anymore. How many years did you live there thinking I am no longer safe? And what was the trigger for you to say, I need to take action, I need to take care of myself?
I lived, of course, my most of my life in Syria. I can say still, and growing up again, we were in an Armenian community, like a kind of an Armenian safe bubble. We went to Armenian private schools, and also afterwards, I joined the university, which is public university. There, everything was still okay. Of course, I was finding out about myself and about my orientation, and that was kind of a journey I was on. However, when indeed our uncertainties started, the war, let's say, I will call it civil war for now, that made things really a bit scary. At some point, it was outside of Aleppo, which is my hometown. And I was still going to my work and thinking, okay, this is horrible, but yeah, life goes on. But at some point, when it started to be very heavy in Aleppo, even at some point, the ISIS come in, and certain things started to become also personal. So it wasn't anymore just civil war in the country. It was, okay, this person is rich, let's kidnap them, let's ask for money. This person is, let's say, homosexual, and we know about it. So then, of course, there are certain punishments on that as well, which is very harsh. So these kind of put the fire underneath me. So I was like, okay, you know what? At this point, you're really not safe here. So I need to live here. Yeah, the first step was to look where can I go? Where's the easiest exit that I can still be a little bit myself, but be at least in a safe country. And that was for me, Lebanon.
And did your family know that you were gay, or they were not aware of that?
Yeah, of course, not even like a Syrian, because Syria, of course, considered one of the countries that doesn't accept homosexuality illegally. Even coming from a Christian family, that there are also very high values and norms. I was told to fit in the box, but of course, as I told you earlier, because of the fire in me, I couldn't just skip that in the box, and I was like, no. I of course told my family, and I explained that this is not a choice. This is who I am. They didn't take it very easily at some point, but I lived like that for 3 years, trying to, educate them, if I can use the word, and also my surroundings, my friends, my colleagues, because they all knew and they all loved me. But then once I made it very clear, things change, and that's what makes it hurt. Like you knew always who I am, and you accepted me, but now that I announce it, then nothing has changed. So I lived like that for 3 years approximately, and then of course it was the moment when the war started, and of course I felt a little bit isolated because of my family, friends, and etc. So that was the right decision to make.
And in that moment when you said, I need to get out, was it a moment of the whole family taking that decision, or was it you saying, I'm leaving? And like, what did that day look like?
Yeah, that's also a bit complicated story, but I will cut it short in the sense of my father had also an illness. He had cancer, and it was not being treated in Aleppo. So we all had to flee first from Aleppo to Damascus, which was relatively safer, we thought. And when he was cured, there was a moment for us to go back. And that's where I took the opportunity. Even when before going to Damascus, I already packed a lot of stuff with me to Damascus, and my mom was like, "We are going only for 4 months. What are you doing?" I was like, "Well, I'm gay, and we like to change our clothes very often, etc." So I came up with excuses, but I knew that I was already gonna go afterwards to my own journey. I told them it was a bit relief and disappointment at the same time. My mom was happy that I was gonna go and find my own journey. But on the other hand, they were also kind of sad and afraid that I might bring, again, shame on the family, but then in this case, outside of the country, somewhere else, etc. So it was a difficult situation, difficult moment. So to be honest, I'm not gonna lie, I got smuggled with a car, with a taxi to Lebanon, and throughout the way, I was constantly crying. So it was tough, very difficult.
Sorry, this is maybe a very
That's
like,
all right.
how does that work? You get smuggled across a border. How do you find someone that will smuggle you, and like, what is that situation like?
Yeah, people find their ways, like there are always people, of course, and yeah, that's a very scary part as well. Like my way, of course, we will cover up later on, was a bit safe way to come to the Netherlands, but going from Damascus to Lebanon was not that high stake. So you just 2 hours with a car, and then you just have to find the right person, pay them. And at the border, they would just, make sure that they pay there as well.
Right, so the border guard might know that there's someone, but you just pay them off to
Of
get
course.
across the
And of
border.
course, they make also deals with the taxi drivers for the drivers that they bring people, like the more you pay, the
Yeah.
more I let you go. And it was a business, but business for them. But for us, it was like our lives being saved.
And you arrived in Lebanon, and then you realized that actually you're still in danger there because of your LGBTQIA identity. What was that period like for you?
Right. So normally, this is also for the listeners. People when flee, they choose a close country where all the culture is a bit similar, the language is similar, the traditions are similar, so that you don't feel, like an alien. So I thought for me, okay, that will be Lebanon is going to be the safe place. And I heard before that Lebanon is a little bit more open-minded, and they have these American universities there, and like a lot of students, a lot of tourists. So then I will be accepted a little bit. The little I know when I got there, the second week already, they made an attack on a bathhouse. With the accusations that they might be queer activities, so they arrested everyone. So that was for me another wake-up call that wait a minute, I'm not safe here either. And then I reached out, of course, to UNHCR, and that is United Nations High Commissioner of Refugees, um, to seek for help. Like I knew that they had some kind of a program that helps people to be resettled in the different countries, safe countries. So I reached out there, and the moment I already spoke to the first employee, it turned out to be also an Armenian guy. I already started to feel like that safety of the idea of you're talking to someone, you're being heard, you're being seen, and somebody really acknowledges you and your problems. So that was already the first step of hope for me, to be honest.
And then you ended up in the Netherlands, but I'm sure that there was a whole process that led up into that resettlement. Can you just talk us through how that all works?
Right. So once you apply, of course, to one of the centers, and they are mostly in host countries. So Lebanon is one of the host countries indeed. Then you can apply, and it takes a lot of time. It takes a year or two maybe until they do your interviews and do background check. And this program, of course, just to come back to it, is meant for vulnerable refugees. So that means people with LGBTQ background, or single moms with kids, or even people, heavily sick people, even political refugees. So these get a second chance in the sense of they get a resettlement to another safe country in a safe way. And the Netherlands was one of the countries that used to take 500 resettles every year. However, recently, because of the political changes, it changed to 200 only. But we're still, focusing on the positive. So yeah, I've been selected to be part of this program, and then I've done a couple of interviews with them. And once they saw that I'm eligible, of course, then indeed I was called. That was also one funny moment when they tell me, yeah, the Netherlands has chose you, so you don't get to choose the country. Of course, you get chosen by a country, and I was like, where is the Netherlands? And then I went home and I started to Google some things, and then I found out it's 7 meters below sea level. I can't even swim. They eat croquette. It doesn't look very appealing, but I hope it's tasty. Things like that. So like, yeah, exactly. So I did some research, but of course for me there was the most important thing was that I knew that I was going somewhere safe. And of course, I also found out that the Netherlands was the first country who accepted gay marriage. So I was like, yeah, so I
Yeah.
want to be there.
And you left your family behind, I'm assuming. Still, how often do you still speak or see them?
Yeah, indeed, I left them behind. And the first period was very difficult because they were still kind of, I wouldn't say bullying, but giving me a hard time in the sense of, come to your senses, think of your future. This is not you. This is just a phase, etc., etc. So to protect myself for a year or two, maybe I kind of cut the relation, like I'm almost blocked them. And then afterwards, when I was in the Netherlands, when I had my own peace in mind, then I started to rebuild this connection. And of course, currently we are in a very good relation, my family, luckily.
Great. Good. I'm happy to hear that.
Thank you.
So you landed in the Netherlands. I'm sure the weather was different, like than what you're used to. But can you talk me through what that first day was like and how you then start to rebuild a life? Because you come with nothing to this country. And how does that process go, building a life in the last 10 years?
Right. And you took my word. I was going to say I arrived in December. So that was not a good month
Not a
to
good month.
arrive. No, it was horrible. It was so dark and rainy and nonstop rain. And I got placed in Zandam. It's a nice city north of Amsterdam. And you get your apartment if you're a resettled refugee, of course. If you come with the UNHCR program, then indeed you get your apartment upon arrival. And yeah, you get in, and of course, I felt very safe. I was like, okay, this is my new place, this is my new home. And I was so grateful. And there was a lot of guidance and support from, of course, UNHCR, but also the Dutch Refugee Council, Vluchtelingenwerk. But what was difficult, it was, especially I came alone, that I felt a bit lonely in the beginning. And again, throughout these dark days, it doesn't help. And it was a tough beginning, to be honest.
I can imagine. So how do you approach getting a social life? Like what was the first time you made a friend in the Netherlands?
Right. So I am somebody who also likes to take initiatives. First of all, we had to, of course, learn the language. So we started the language school. That was the first circle already for me to meet new people, and also some expats. They were also on the same course that they wanted to learn the language. It was also fun to meet, internationals, to be in the class with them. So that was nice. And of course, I love to sing. So I went and searched and reached out to Amsterdam Gay Men's Chorus, and they were just starting. So that was actually that first season. And they said, yeah, of course we can accept you. So then I joined, and I right away made 25 new friends. I also started to volunteer some places. Like I started to volunteer in Dutch Refugee Council as a talk interpreter. And then it helped me to network to other people from UNHCR. And then they also gave me some volunteer work. And this way, my network got a little bit bigger. And on the other hand, of course, this is on a queer aspect. If you come to a very free country, sometimes also the other extreme also doesn't help. So in the beginning, I was like, I didn't dare to go out. I felt like a little bit, okay, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what's there. So I locked myself away from the whole gay scene. But
Yeah.
later on, by meeting friends, indeed, and going to the scene the right way, by the help of some nice men from the chorus, that was actually the right way to do so, and that helped a lot.
Because if you look at Europe and the influx of refugees we're seeing in Europe, especially in the media, you see a lot of negative sentiment around it. Have you experienced that also in your personal life, or actually you've had mostly really positive experiences?
Not personally to me negative. I also choose to surround myself with, nice people. I don't know if that's a luxury, or I don't know how to say it, but I don't look for troubles, and I never experienced that. But I did indeed see people who experience that, and I always stood up for them. And it's sad because people don't understand the fact behind it, that it is a choice. It is a choice that we make, and the choice is very tough. Either leaving everything that you built all this life behind you and go to a new country, or literally die. So they don't understand if they put
Those
in
are
this.
not choices. Yeah, this is not a
Yeah,
choice.
well, it's still a choice. Some people chose to stay behind because that's too risky for them to flee. But then, yeah, you will live the day to day. You would never know if you're gonna wake up tomorrow. So,
Yeah.
but yeah. I wish that people understand that it is not a choice. We are here because we are unsafe in our countries,
Yeah.
and how did unsafety started? That's another story. And how much these people here had impact on that? That's also another story. I don't want to go, but like it's all come hand in hand. So instead of pointing fingers, let's open our arms. I would say that's my call for now.
Yeah. Like, I think that's a good bridge to hospitality. You've studied hotel management, so now you are an expert in hospitality. Like, what role can hospitality, in a human sense, play in supporting newcomers and refugees coming in to the country after that, like now newcomers that were coming in? What would you do differently in that process?
If you allow me, read the UNHCR definition of hospitality. So they use, of course, the original Latin word. So they say it comes from the word hospice, meaning both guest and host. It reflects a timeless principle of mutual care and respect to offer safety, warmth, and dignity to those who arrive at your door. Long before hospitality became an industry, it was human instinct to welcome the stranger and create connection. And to be honest, when I add to that, what we can do is just see these people. The toughest thing that I had when I went to the supermarket in that winter time when I arrived and came back home, and I felt like I was invisible. People don't say hi, people don't know who I am. I'm in a different country. And sometimes they saw that I struggle by reading certain things or understanding how things work, but there was no help. So
Yeah.
that a really small start, we can start from there. Like just understand others and see them, just see them as human beings. And of course, then it can grow of including them into your families, inviting them for dinner or other way around. Let's cook together, like certain things that hospitality includes. That's really the warmth of it. And then we can go think bigger, of course. How can we include them in our businesses? How can we give these talented people who have hospitality in their really roots, how can in their cores, how can we support them? How can we include them and make our hospitality industry even richer? And finally, of course, and I think that happened sometimes in Amsterdam, that there were a lot of, and also different cities, a lot of hotels started to welcome the newcomers or refugees as like centers to welcome them. And that was really nice. So that was a moment that's better than actually sleeping in tents. Literally, when I arrived, there was like tents in the park next to my home. And that was not a nice place, of course, but there was no other option. No, there are a lot of things that we can do as hospitality, but if we all just take it personally, a small scale, and think of, okay, if I see someone, I will just help them or just greet them and make them feel, home. And as big companies and big corporates, we can always look at, for example, like UNHCR or the Dutch Refugee Council, and we see how we can support their acts or their actions that they need to take.
That's so good. Because you've experienced hospitality, I guess, in the humanitarian sector, by the way that you've come into the Netherlands, but also now in hospitality. And do you see a connection between the two?
Absolutely. And to be honest, I also worked in Dutch advisory group. It is refugee advisory group for the Netherlands for maybe 2 years, 3 years, that we collectively with some other resettled refugees, we have to think about better solutions of how we can even improve the process of the settlement. And most of the time when we were talking about hospitality, I was reflecting, oh my God, these are the things I learned at hotel school. And major points of it is how to clean the bed, how to, prepare the room, how to prepare the breakfast, how to, like we do everything, we do all these things to cater our guests who come in. And the same thing was what we were thinking. Okay, these people are going to come to this country. They don't know anyone. They don't know anything. How can we support them? How can we be this group that helps them, or how can we ask people to be involved in that? So there are a lot of things that, for example, the community engagement, the local integration, these are the things that UNHCR is busy already, but that's what I also ask people to come and join and help doing that as well.
When you entered the Netherlands, you've now since become a strong advocate for LGBTQIA rights, refugee rights, and use all of these different platforms like UNHCR. What's inspired you to take on that role, and what sustains your motivation, especially in a time when the sentiment has shifted, and there are vocal voices saying we don't want more refugees, we don't, and it's so difficult, I'm sure, to keep standing up and keep representing. But I'm really curious in what drives your motivations.
It is indeed a difficult fight, and getting a bit more difficult at times. But as I mentioned earlier, so for me, when I see just injustice and I cannot just stand still, and having platforms, having indeed organizations that also support you, like stand behind you, then you feel kind of safe to express yourself, to talk about, hey, I don't accept this, or even to create awareness in our new generation, the youth, because sometimes they take things for granted. A lot of people think that, okay, being gay in the Netherlands is okay, then yeah, we get it, as we born, and that's okay. But they know that a lot of people had to fight for the rights that we have now. Some people even died for the rights that we have now, and they just take it for granted. And that's what I try to create awareness in the people, that they are queer or they are for refugees, but they don't know how to act. So creating awareness is a step one, and that's kind of course, and see the enthusiasm in them. Once they get, oh, so that's how it works, and that kind of gives me also the motivation and the need, to do more. Oh, I have a lot of work to do still, so that kind of comes hand in hand. And also, yeah, that's on a personal aspect. When I hear people from my classroom, even in back in Syria in high school, they reach out to me, say that because you dared but once, talk about your journey and share your journey, we now get to be ourselves, either in Syria or even different countries in Europe. Like, you kind of took the torch for us and run, and then we started to follow. Now it sounds very heroic, but I don't want to take that, and this, just the idea gives me like a lot of motivation to, okay, so it's not for nothing. I'm doing it indeed for people, and people appreciate it, and I want to do that, and I want to do more.
And I love that people tell you that, because I do think what you do is heroic, and you are at risk by putting your name out there as a Syrian, and the way that you're talking about transparency and the LGBTQ community and fighting for inclusion. So I'm so glad that people tell you that the stuff you're doing is valuable, and I'm happy to see you continuing to do that.
Thank you, appreciate it.
So if you look at your engagement with UNHCR in the Netherlands specifically, I think you talk a lot about inclusion and belonging. What's your advice to some of the organizations and communities here to make sure that they are more inclusive?
I think I also do a lot of presentation on the fact of the equity and equality. A lot of the time, big corporates, even when I applied to certain jobs after graduating hotel school, I faced with a lot of systematic or bureaucratic application systems, that it's, yeah, but we do it equally. We do it for everyone. Everyone who applies to our jobs has to go through this. So we're not differentiating to or discriminating. Well, actually, you are, because there's a difference between equality and equity. So the equity is giving people like us the tools that we need in order to succeed in corporates or companies, or let our talent show. So if you say that, okay, this system works for everyone, but it's actually not, because we didn't have the privileges by that they had here by growing in a different schools, private schools, or this very great educational system here, etc., etc. And for us, there's always hard work. We have to work really hard to prove ourselves. So I invite the big corporates or companies just to work as hard as we do in order to include us into the big system, or the community, in big words.
When you think about the future for yourself, the refugees, but also societies that people that are listening to this, what are your hopes? Because sometimes it's easy to get dragged down into some of the negative motivations out there, but actually the ones that have a message of hope sometimes thrive long term. Like, what do you hope for?
Yeah, true. I always say hope is a very powerful word, because it takes you throughout the difficult time. But even more powerful word is actually action. So I call everyone to action, to take some, again, start small, see the other, see yourself. And I think the fact that we are here now, because we are kind of losing the hospitality spirit in ourselves, and that's why we landed in this political, if I may say, disaster. So if we open up a little bit more and be just true to ourselves a little bit more, and open arms, welcome everyone, and I think that will kind of make things easier for everyone.
Yeah. And I think it's often people like, yes, I would love to help, but I don't know where to begin. What would you suggest that people do? Because it is fair. They're like, I want to do something, but where would people start? What's the thing you'd recommend?
Yeah, again, as I mentioned, so most of the humanitarian organizations, including UNHCR and the Dutch Refugee Council, they all work on volunteer basis. There's a lot of volunteers that they're doing the job, even if it's like 1 hour or 2 hours. So just go and sign up for this. And if you cannot sign up, let's say if you don't have the time, I bet you have the money. So then go for and donate. And yeah, I don't know if it's allowed for me to say this, but there are always ways of helping and supporting, especially now that most of the funds actually are being cut by the other countries that they are mostly helping UNHCR. We need this. So they can start anyhow, either indeed, as I mentioned, acknowledging small scale your neighbors, or going and volunteering, or indeed in case donating as well.
If people have listened to the last 30 minutes remember anything from our conversation today, what would you want that to be?
The importance of the second chance. By me coming here to this country, I literally got a second chance of my life. Either I was going to be doomed and ended in Syria, or I'm going to be here, if I may say, flourishing, and then being able to study, do my work, build a network, and help others. So believe in the second chances. Give somebody a second chance, and they might not disappoint you. So I think that will be my message.
I love that. Armen, thank you so much for everything you do, for sharing it so openly, because it makes a difference. It doesn't feel sometimes like it, probably when you do the really hairy work, but I think what you do is so impactful. And thank you for sharing it so transparently.
Thank you very much for giving us a platform. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.